I'd like to call this special board meeting of the Jackson City Schools Board of Education to order. Roll call.
McDonald.
Present.
Moore.
Here.
Harless.
Here.
Morris.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
All members are present.
All right, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. I'll second.
Smith.
Yes.
Harless.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
The motion passes.
And I need a motion, if I could have to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Smith.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Harless.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes. Okay, now we're gonna talk about graduation and senior recognition items. That's the purpose of this meeting, and Mr. Howard's got some information that he is gonna share, and then we can have some discussion afterward.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. I think it's safe to say that everyone sitting here is heartbroken for our seniors at what they're missing. And we all want to do as much as we possibly can to make their senior year memorable. I personally have a son that is in the graduating class, although I want that for every graduating class, but that also means that I have not only a son, but I have a wife at home and a mommy who wants the best for her son as well. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, myself and Mr. Haynes conducted a virtual meeting with our senior class officers and our valedictorians. And we talked about, this was before the governor had actually even said that school was not going to be opened back up for the remainder of the year. So we talked about some possibilities, knowing that there would be a lot of changes between that time and now. We actually ended up giving them a survey. We talked about postponing the graduation as an option. We talked about having a virtual graduation on May 22nd, or a combination of the two, where we would go ahead and have a virtual graduation on May 22nd with the promise that if things cleared up and we could still have a graduation at a later time in the summer, that we would do so. And we surveyed our students with that. The majority of the students responded back that they would prefer to postpone the graduation. And for our, particularly for our valedictorians, you know, they've worked extremely hard for 12 years to be at the top of the class, and a lot of those students are really looking forward to delivering their speech on that night in front of as many people as possible. After that, we had some ideas and suggestions. I've had several emails from community members and parents and even some of the students. I got one today from a senior student. And a lot of those ideas were good ideas and things that we could have probably tweaked a little to be able to make it work. We were still having to try to work within the governor's guidelines of a limited number of people, 10 people maximum at the time. And we had some things that we thought could possibly work out. We were looking at drive-in type graduation possibly. Area highway patrolman sent me an email talking about being able to have a drive-through graduation, and it had some good points to it that we may have been able to tweak. So there were a lot of different suggestions that I think that we could have probably come up with a pretty good solution. But quickly, what happened after that, after we started having those discussions, and Mr. Haynes and I had another meeting set up with our students, with our valedictorians and our senior class officers. In the meantime, the Ohio Department of Education came out with a guidance document that pretty much dismissed any of the thoughts or ideas that we had. And I'm going to read to you from that document right now. The Ohio Department of Education has been fielding several questions about graduation ceremonies and other end-of-year recognition ceremonies for students. Educators, students, and parents are questioning whether they should attempt to hold in-person events of this nature. While we understand the significance, tradition, and rites of passage many of these events represent, particularly for our seniors, schools should hold events virtually rather than conducting in-person events of this type, and record these events whenever possible and practicable. Congregate graduation ceremonies should not be held. Additionally, we recommend holding a virtual or alternate recognition on the original intended graduation date or a date very close to that date. Governor DeWine, during his press conference on Monday, April 20th, stated, "The gathering of significant numbers of people is a dangerous situation. Just as schools have been innovative in regard to how to teach from a distance, I know that they will be innovative as they look at how they honor the students. We are asking the education community to come together and honor our students, especially our seniors, in a manner that doesn't pose health risks to anyone. Schools should continue to recognize the importance of restrictions on mass gatherings, and events should be aligned with the Ohio Department of Health's order. Hosting in-person events can lead to many other negative consequences, including the following. With each change of venue or calendar delay, there's no guarantee that large gatherings will be permitted, and there's a risk of fewer students actually being able to participate due to other life plans, such as beginning employment, attending college, military enlistment, etc. In-person events add to the complexity of asking students to comply with social distancing, as these events often are highly emotional, invoking natural physical responses such as high fives and hugs. In-person events, even if only for the participants, can lead to other people, family members, relatives, friends, wanting to physically attend, even though they're not permitted to do so. Pressure is unintentionally put on other high schools, principals, superintendents, and boards of education that have chosen to conduct events virtually rather than in person. Therefore, school leaders should conduct graduation ceremonies and other recognition events in a remote manner that honors each student in a safe and responsible way, prioritizing the health needs of students, their families, and the community. So once this came out, Mr. Haynes and I met with those students, and again, none of the ideas that we had talked about would fit into this guidance document from the Ohio Department of Education. The three county superintendents, myself, the superintendent from Wellston, the superintendent from Oak Hill, all got together, had a conversation. We reached out to Kevin Aston, the county health director, had a conference call with him on Saturday morning, the three of us, and to get his input, because Kevin Aston is the Amy Acton of Jackson County. He is the health director. What he says goes. He has final authority. So in conjunction with the health director, we had this conversation, and then he put out a press release, of which I'll read a little bit of it to you. The three superintendents of the three local school districts in Jackson County have been coordinating closely with the health commissioner on this matter. All four agree that holding live graduation ceremonies would expose our community's families to an unnecessary risk of infection. Privately organized graduation ceremonies, proms, graduation parties, and so forth, are strongly discouraged for the same reason. Please remember, some people die from coronavirus infection, so stopping the spread saves lives. Given the uncertainty about how long the pandemic will last, it is impossible to plan on having live graduation ceremonies later in the year. Therefore, we are going to hold virtual graduation ceremonies in Jackson County this year. Graduating seniors will be scheduled to arrive at their school on a specific date and time, wearing their caps and gowns so that they may enter the school one at a time to receive their diplomas from school officials. Each student will be digitally filmed by the school staff, and the videos will be edited together to create a video production of each school's seniors all graduating, which will be released afterwards. Importantly, only 2 parents, guardians of each student will be allowed to accompany their senior inside to witness them receiving their diploma firsthand. No other family members or friends will be permitted to enter the schools other than the 2 parents. Conducting graduation in this manner is in accordance with infection control protocols and the ODE's guidance. Additional details about how each school's virtual graduation ceremony will be released by their respective superintendents in the coming days. And then he goes on to say that, we've all made sacrifices during the coronavirus pandemic. One of the hardest for many of us will be that we will have to sacrifice celebrating the class of 2020's high school graduation in the traditional ways that we hoped we would. This group of young people will not get the exact same send-off into adulthood that graduating seniors typically get, and this pandemic is forcing them to grow up a little faster than usual. But the silver lining in this situation is that they will be better prepared to deal with life's other hardships as a result. The class of 2020 is going to be the toughest bunch of young adults to grow up here in 100 years. And so this was the direction that came from the county health director, of which the other three superintendents agreed. And I will tell you that it was a tough sell with Kevin to be able to get him to allow even a few people to come into the building. This guy, he does a very good job. He's very conscientious. He's always quick to call back anytime that I have a question, but he always has the health of the Jackson Countyans in mind, and he was concerned, and so we had to work hard to get the details of where we would be allowed to have a couple of people that could come in with the student. So, based upon the ODE guidance and our meeting with Kevin Aston, the county health director, at that time and at this time now, it would still be my recommendation that we would have a virtual graduation. Now, having said that, the governor kind of really muddied the waters today in his speech. And I don't know, there's definitely a conflict here between what we've seen from ODE and what we've seen from the governor. So I think that in the coming days, somebody's going to have to give one way or another, because there's definitely a conflict. And I have the actual clip of the question that was posed to the governor today with his response, and then you can see for yourself the difference between his response to that question and ODE's. Would you go ahead and play that clip, please?
Hello, Governor. Ben Garbrick with ABC 6 and Fox 28. One common question we keep getting from viewers is asking about graduation ceremonies. I understand large gatherings are not allowed still, but many people are wondering if social distancing was observed, if there was a smaller group, maybe inside of a football stadium where they're outdoors and they're not within 6 feet of one another. Would it be possible to have graduation ceremonies with some of these precautions in place?
I think, again, everything always comes back to distance. Everything always comes back to protecting people. And so, whatever question we get asked, that really is kind of how we have to look at this. So as far as I'm concerned, if a school can do the distancing, if they can figure out how to do that, they can certainly do graduation. They can do something else. So again, it's up to the school. Some of this is going to be driven by how many students they have, obviously, in graduation. It's going to be driven by what facility they have. So there's a lot of different things. But could there be a way that a school puts together a graduation? I would certainly think so. Again, they've got to be careful. It's got to be well thought out. They've got to figure it out. Some schools, just because of how many students they have in graduation class, probably can't do it very well or can't do it. But if they can do that, as far as I'm concerned, that's correct. That would be fine. Now, I think the State Department of Education did put out some guidance. I didn't see it going out, but I think it was consistent with the things that we have been saying that talked about not having graduation. So that would have to be something that we get clarified through the Department of Education. But it just seems to me, as a parent and grandparent who's been through a lot of graduations, and I know how important they are, that if we could figure out a way, or if that school can figure out a way to do it, that might be an okay thing to do.
So, having heard that, you can see the position that it puts school officials in, superintendents, Board of Education members. It's totally contrary to the document and the guidance that was provided to us by the Ohio Department of Education. And for me personally, the board's going to end up making a decision on this. I'll make a recommendation. I can tell you that right now, we're not going to be able to decide anything tonight because I think that in the next few days, obviously, either the governor or the Ohio Department of Education is going to have to change their stance or come together for a compromise of the two. I'm not opposed to having a graduation at some point in time when it's safe. But if we are going to do anything on May 22nd, it is, in my opinion, even if the governor says that we are permitted to do so, I think it is absolutely reckless on our part to have a graduation, a live graduation on May 22nd. But again, we could have one maybe in July or something, I don't know. But right now, between now and May 22nd, is not enough time to elapse to allow a regular graduation. There's so many conflicts. I mean, there's still an order of 10, maximum of 10 people. He contradicted his own order there in the press conference. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see what's going to come out here in the next couple of days. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys I've talked enough here to get your opinions, and then if you have questions for me or comments.
I mean, I think based on what we've heard and the conflicts that are out there, I mean, my take is that we postpone the virtual graduation. As some of us have discussed, you know, the valedictorians want to give their speech. They don't give their speeches twice. Once they've already been heard, what's the point of getting up in front of people and doing that? And they've earned that right to do that with a lot of hard work. So, I mean, my take would be, at this point, not plan to do anything until we get a little more clarification about what's going to happen. Because I think if we have a chance to have a live graduation, I would love to see it happen.
And I'm not saying that I oppose that, other than the fact that I want to make sure that we have something. And what makes sense to me would be to go ahead and have, or at least complete, a virtual graduation so that we have it ready.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah, I
we
think
air
that-
the virtual graduation on May 22nd or not, we can have that discussion. But I think that we need to do that. I mean, we've got 180 kids in the class, and it takes a long time for us to get 180 students in and do the video and do the editing. I mean, we've got a great crew of IT people, but I mean, they're not Superman. I mean, we need to be able to have as much time as we possibly can.
Riley could do it.
So I think that we need to go ahead and get ready for the virtual. I have concerns about rescheduling graduation later on, because as the ODE document suggested, you're going to have kids who are going to be going off to the workforce, you know, enlist in the military. Those kids are going to be excluded.
But I think as long as we have a date out there, that they can plan around that if it's important to them to be there in person. But I do feel we have to set a date and say,
Yeah.
this is when it's going to be. If it goes past this date, I don't think there's anything we can do.
But if we're going to do that, we need to do it in the next
Couple days.
several days. We need to
Yeah.
figure, find out what's going to happen as
We got to wait on this.
recourse
I
from
think.
this.
Yeah, we
Yes,
have
In
to
order to
wait.
do that, but I agree that setting a date is important.
I do too. When you talk about, you know, they're saying that some people's not going to be here or be able to come back. Well, we've already got them on virtual. So let's just play those 5% or 10 people on virtual. That's all they was going to get anyway. And if the rest of the people could have some type of graduation, we'd take the ones that come back. I've always wondered why we have to do this on May 22nd. And I'm still believing and hoping that it gets better. And I believe the governor's thinking that, because he's going to meet 3 times this month, changing his orders. I think 1st of May, the 12th, and I think again at the end of May. So, you know, he's anticipating things getting better. He's not anticipating things crashing on the 12th. So I'd like to see it put off.
I would like to say, again, what did the group of valedictorians or senior class officers, what did their survey say? What did they want?
The majority of those students that responded,
back.
which was the vast majority, 140, I think, out of
Yes.
180, responded that they would like to see it postponed.
Yeah.
But they also said that they were okay with a virtual ceremony on the 22nd
And then come back?
and postponing it.
I
And
mean,
in
I
fact,
think we have to look at that a little bit. It's their thing.
and in fact, one of the questions on the survey was, how many of you would not come back? Because that, I get that if we go ahead and do a virtual ceremony on the 22nd, some may just say, heck with it, we've already had it, I'm not gonna come back. But there were only 8 or 9 that said that they
Wow.
couldn't or wouldn't come back. I don't know if it's because we've already had it, or if they already, they're going off to the military, or whatever. We didn't ask why, but there were 8 or 9 students who said that they wouldn't or couldn't come back if we had a ceremony later in the summer after a virtual ceremony.
And then like Brian said, then we'll have them on virtual. We can put them up on the,
Yes,
on the new school, our school
yeah.
scoreboard.
I don't think it hurts to have it on May 22nd, because that's the date when they were going to graduate. And I think that's, it may be why they wanted to have it on that date, because there is some significance with that date. Although we can look at having the possibility later on of having a graduation if things improve, but we don't know that yet, and like Kim said, we have a date and set a date so people can plan if things do get better and people are gonna start traveling, that they can make plans to be there if we have something. But there's gotta be a deadline some point, because
Sure.
it can't go on, because other things are gonna be happening.
Alice, what's
So-
your take?
We're caught between the rock and the hard place. Until he decides and ODE decides what's actually going to be, we can't even make a decision.
And understand too, that there's still the piece hanging out there of our local health director.
Kevin?
Have you talked to him since this?
I have talked to Kevin, and I actually have him available. He's ready to take a phone call if
Let's
you.
do it.
I think that'd be
I think
fantastic.
Yeah, I
That's
think you
great.
need to call and hear what he has to say.
Until we get some consistency, there's no way of setting a date or anything else.
True.
Go into a holding pattern for the next few days anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, it's Phil Howard, Superintendent of Jackson City Schools. Hey, I've got you on, I'm gonna put you on speakerphone here. I'd asked you earlier if you could be available. I appreciate you taking the time for this, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna go ahead and put you on speakerphone. Okay, I have Kevin Aston, the local health director, on speakerphone here. And Kevin, I don't know if you've been watching or not, but we're talking about obviously graduation, and I know that when you gave us your direction, you were obviously working off of a document that was given to us as guidelines by the Ohio Department of Education, and you've heard what the governor said today. Clearly, there's probably going to be some other direction here in the coming days, but if you don't care to share with us what your take on the situation is as far as graduation.
Sure, Superintendent Howard, and good evening, Jackson City School District Board of Education members and families in Jackson County that are listening into this. I think that the three superintendents in Jackson County and I, as Superintendent Howard mentioned, we had a heart-to-heart conference call about this. Obviously, this isn't an easy decision for anybody. That's why you're having this meeting about it here tonight. I totally understand why you want to get together and have a meeting about this. It means a lot to a lot of people. I think we made the right decision at that moment that we made it. I think even tonight, even as you've heard Governor DeWine's comments about that, the subject matter of high school commencement ceremonies earlier today, I think it remains the right decision, even given his comments. I think it's our duty, all of our duty, to those members of our community who are the most vulnerable to bad outcomes from this pandemic, to protect them. We protect them by slowing and stopping the spread of the disease, and we do that by not holding mass gatherings or public events. I think if you put it like that to most seniors and their families, they'd agree to make the sacrifice on how commencement is conducted, and it should be conducted in a way to save lives. And I understand that the situation is continually developing. It seems like every day, every week, there's more updates, and we're learning more about the virus, and the situation is evolving, changing all the time. Believe me, I'm living that. I know, I think we all are. So I don't have a crystal ball as to exactly, what's going to happen specifically in the next few days. It's not my expectation, though, that very soon mass gatherings and public events, like a large commencement ceremony, are going to be the sorts of things that are going to be allowed here in the very near future. So I think that factors into this decision about that. We're starting to roll back some of the business closing and some things, but those things are going to happen stepwise. And I think the very last things that are going to be allowed to happen are mass gatherings and public events, like the ones that we're discussing tonight. So I certainly think that weighs in to the decision about whether or not to have a commencement ceremony. Elsewhere in his address this afternoon, Governor DeWine said that the things that we haven't done as Ohioans, those are the things that have truly made the difference, that our collective actions are so much more important than anything the governor says or any order that he or the state government has issued. These are a summary. It's his words today. What we do and don't do now as individuals, and what we do or don't do collectively, and how careful we all are during this period of time, those decisions are becoming ever more important. And those were also the governor's words today. So I reiterate that I think the safest decision, the decision that will save lives, is to have these virtual high school commencement ceremonies the way that I tried to describe in the press release I did over the weekend. So I stand by that decision. And I think that if you put it to the seniors and the families of our community, that they would understand, most of them would understand, that the sacrifice that they're making on how commencement is conducted this year is going to save lives, and that they'll understand that.
Anybody, any comments or?
I still think that's clear as mud. I mean, I still think we need to wait a few days and see if we get any more direction, because these things are changing quickly, it seems like.
I guess part of my question would be, if we're looking in July to him, does he foresee, I know you can't, like you said, you don't have a crystal ball, but the farther we go out, what's the odds of maybe having something that's not virtual?
Kevin, I think the question is that, or would you permit, and maybe you can't answer this, I don't know, but are you going to permit a graduation with a large mass gathering in the month of July?
I have a hard time projecting my own decision-making out that far. The decision that the three Jackson County superintendents and I made Saturday, I felt like the four of us made that together, and as Superintendent Howard said, it wasn't a very easy decision. It's hard, again, I don't have a crystal ball, so I hesitate to try to predict what I'm going to want to advise months out from now. So, sorry, that's probably not exactly the best answer that you wanted, but if you put yourself in my shoes, maybe you would understand that too. I think that given where we're at right now, I can honestly say, in my professional opinion, that I don't know how long this is going to last. I think assuming that's going to be over sooner rather than later is not a safe assumption. I just don't know. I think that the virus is going to continue to spread, and that it's going to pose a risk to those most vulnerable members of our community. And that when we mix groups of people together, whether it's now or probably in July, from what I know now, this is probably still going to be the case in July, that this isn't going to be over, and that having a gathering like a large commencement ceremony would still increase the spread, which would out and affect some of the most vulnerable members of our community and impact their health in a negative way.
Okay, Kevin. Hey, we appreciate your coming in to our conversation here. I know you didn't have to do that and put yourself on the spot out here in front of the public, but we greatly appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Well, thank you all for your time and consideration this evening.
Thanks, Kevin. So I think that clearly we're going to have to wait anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wait a couple of days at least to see what the governor and the Ohio Department of Education say. I will say that what Kevin said, I agree 100% with Kevin. I think the responsible thing to do is to have a virtual graduation. I realize that I work for the board and I will carry out whatever directive that you guys decide, but I think that at this point it's reckless, and especially when you're listening to the county health director here talking about the spread of the disease and potentially people dying. But I think, at least for right now, there's not much that we can decide tonight. I mean, we can have a discussion here about the second part of the agenda was actually ways that we can recognize and honor our students in the event that we don't get to have a traditional graduation.
So we've been discussing some things, and I know just collectively, we've been talking about different things that we can do for the seniors. I know Mr. Howard's got a couple of our ideas that he can share, but other board members, we can talk about that and decide what we want to do. We can do. We need to recognize them. We need to help them to make this the best we can under the circumstances.
There's a lot of different things out there that a lot of creative things that other schools are doing, and people have been sending me emails and texts of different things. And one of the things that I know we all understand, but everyone needs to understand, is that the things that you can do whenever you have a graduating class of 40 or 50 or 60 compared to what you can do when you have a graduating class of 180 are vastly different in terms of not only holding in-person events, but also doing things with regard to the cost of things. So let me just say this: that Jason Holzapfel, who's a businessman here in town, owns a couple of gas stations. He owns the filling station at Main and Broad, is it Main Bridge, and then he also owns the Quick Stop. Jason contacted me yesterday, just out of the blue, actually it's Sunday, and asked if he could do something for our seniors. And I said, sure. And I said, what do you got in mind? And he said, I want to give a $25 gas card to every Jackson High School student. Wow. Well, 25 times 180, that's $4,500 that he just invested in our students. So I appreciate Jason for doing that. Mr. Haynes has sent him the list of the seniors, and he'll be getting those cards to you. So some of those kind of things that people in the community can also do if they have ideas. There's also, if you've noticed in town, well, first of all, there was an email that I'm sure that most of you guys got that had a picture of a school building with the driveway coming up, and there were signs of pictures of all of the students. That particular school, I looked it up, or at least the one I saw had what?
30. Had 30.
30 in their graduating class, so that's quite different than 180. But we could do something like that here. I mean, we got tremendous amount of space here. You could put signs coming up the hill, up up Vaughn. You can do it coming in off of 139. We could easily accommodate the 180 signs. The thing that we got to be careful about is we want to make sure that we don't do something that's going to create a situation where a large gathering of people come. But if these signs are going to be up for 3 weeks, there wouldn't be any reason for everybody to rush over here, and try to see it in a half hour. And we created a situation where, there's a large group of people and people getting out of vehicles and so forth. So, Riley, if you want to put those signs up, I was thinking of something like this. I actually have one at my house in my out by my driveway. My wife purchased one for Griff, And it's been modified a little bit because the picture that we had, it's a lot smaller, and we wanted the picture to be a little bit bigger. Those signs on the top there are 18 by 24, I believe, and the bottom one is 2 foot by 3 foot. But you're still looking at a sizable investment whenever you're talking about 180 students. But that's just one idea of something that we could do.
How much are those, Phil, the 2x3?
The 2x3s are $25 if they don't have the laminate on them, and $28 if they do have the laminate. So you're looking at $4,500 to $5,000 for the really big ones, the 2x3s.
Do you need the laminate for
Weather, I imagine.
weather?
He said that, because I asked about that, and the laminate obviously protects against the weather, but
Yeah, but how long are they going to be up?
that's what he said. If you're going to only have these up for 3 or 4 weeks, you really don't need
Really?
the laminate.
That's almost $1,000 difference,
Yeah, yeah. So we wouldn't have to have the laminate
$500 difference.
because of the difference. You're only going to be up for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But that's just, one idea. I'm open to others. Now, Mr. Haynes put together we could put this on the website, or I don't know, someone could start some kind of a Facebook thing, that one, the valedictorian one. We could do something like this with each student. Are our viewers seeing this, Riley? Okay. Picture of the senior and this could be done, could this be, I'm not a social media person, but could this be done on Facebook, or
Yes.
create just a Facebook page of seniors, or what?
Right.
Okay. So we could do something along those lines also. I mean, there's some time consumption, but there's no real cost to it.
I had looked into checking with the mayor to see what the regulations are, but organizing a small parade and focusing on the number 20. For example, 20 units, perhaps. Some of the band members that are not graduating, maybe Apple Festival royalty, fair royalty, anybody that wanted to be a part of it, if we had 20 units to focus on that 20. And I thought about asking to use a wagon with some hay bales, but there again, you're getting into the space requirements. You can't put the kids on those wagons because of the space requirements.
And also, Alice, that was a part of the discussion that we had on Saturday with Kevin, the health director. Specifically, I mentioned parade. And anyone who wants to organize that has to go through him. And what he doesn't want, and I get it, I mean, he doesn't want to have a situation where we have like the Apple Festival with the Main Street lined. I'm not saying that he would say no to that, but I guarantee you it would have to be planned out to the T. I mean, he would want to know the route that you're going to use and all that stuff to
Almost to the minute.
yes, so that people wouldn't be congregating. It's one thing people standing out in their yard and waving and as you go by, but it's another thing to create a situation like that. So whomever would be heading that up would need to get with Kevin and go through the details of that.
Anyone else have any other ideas or comments about recognition, graduation?
What was the one we talked about earlier of having 2 parents come in? Kevin said no to that. Is that what I understood? Have them come into the school? Kevin said yes to that. Can we explain that a little?
Well, I mean,
more?
what we were talking about is if we end up doing the virtual thing, and I think this would be a really cool thing. The health director had said that we could have each student could have mom and dad come in, or 2 people, mom, dad, guardian. And what I had thought about doing, and I talked to Karen Bach about this, is that allowing the parent to actually present the diploma to the child. And that's pretty unique. I mean, we've never done that. I mean, we've allowed one of our faculty members, or a board member who has a son or daughter graduating, or a grandchild, but you've never, as a parent, you'll never get the opportunity to present the diploma to your son or daughter. So, I thought that might be something that might help ease the pain, I guess, so to speak, a little bit, and for the parent and the student. And then that would be a part of the virtual production that our people would put together.
So how would we do that? I mean, how would we get 189 plus their parents through?
You'd have to
Oh,
do
no,
it over weeks.
over
It's all
several weeks?
scripted, and it would take, because that was one of the things that we talked about with the health director, was he does not want us bringing, a whole slew of people into the building at one time. And I understand that, and so the three superintendents agreed that we would, every 10 or 15 minutes, I think Mr. Haynes has a schedule set up, and students will arrive every 10 or 15 minutes. For 10 minutes, we will do the video that we need to do, or valedictorians will, go ahead and we'll record them giving their speech, and they'll go out the door, and then we'll have the next one. And when you're talking about a class, and that's why we're going to have to, at some point in the very near future, we're going to have to make a decision, because with 180 students and only being able to get them in here in 15-minute increments or whatever, you're talking about, you already did the math on it, what was it, Thad?
It's
4 days or?
10 minute, if you do 10-minute increments, you're looking at least 30 hours of work. And that's not, that's not including that you have to take a lunch break before you have somebody show up a little bit late, or it runs over just a little bit. And we would schedule the valedictorians in for a longer period simply because they would have to record their speech. And it wouldn't probably be one opportunity to give the speech. We would make sure they were comfortable giving it and that kind of stuff.
So you're looking at least 4-day
Yeah,
period
5 days.
of, being able to get kids in to record and give our tech guys time to be able to do what they need to do to make it look presentable. I think that at least for tonight that we say that we're clearly not going to be able to make any decision, and I got to believe that in the next few days, because I'm telling you, my phone has blown up from about 50 other superintendents in the last 3 or 4 hours since the governor made that speech. So everybody's in limbo. We're not the only ones that's in this position, and to rush and make a decision tonight and then end up having to change it when new guidance comes out in the next couple of days is, I don't think that's a prudent thing to do. I mean, I've watched a lot of cowboy and Indian movies, and those first guys running up the hill, they get shot every time. So I think we ought to just wait a couple of days. Again, we can't wait too long, because we're gonna have to make a decision here pretty soon. But I think that let things shake out from the governors and Ohio Department of Education here in the next few days, and then we'll make a decision at that point in time. In the meantime, we can still work on some of these other things as far as, the recognition pieces. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Well, we need to,
So we'll have any closing items from board members that we haven't already discussed. I think we've discussed about everything,
I
so.
want to thank Jason Holzapfel.
Yes, thank you
That's
so much.
that's outstanding.
Amazing.
Especially, I mean, Jason didn't go to school in Jackson.
well, and just
he's-
in case anybody from Wellston's watching, I'm sure he's doing the same thing in Wellston. I don't want to, but, because he's got, in fact, he said that when he talked to me on the phone, he's got business
The
up there
store,
too. So
yes.
he's doing the same thing for their students, so.
Greatly appreciated by the community as a whole, I'm sure.
Last thing I want to say, the census, I've said this the last couple of times, people need to get that filled out or go online and complete that and get it sent in. It takes you less than 10 minutes. It has huge ramifications. Billions and billions of dollars will be funneled and directed according to the population of all of the states. So we need to make sure that we get our share. And the other thing is, if you don't go online and do it or complete it, somebody's going to come and knock on your door, and you're going to have to stand on your front porch and give them the information. So you might as well just do it and get it over with.
Okay, so we got to wait a few days and we'll find out what the information that we receive. But as of now, the health director has made his recommendation and statutory binding authority, so we'll wait and then we'll reschedule another special meeting in the future once we have more information. Continue to think of ideas and gather ideas that we can do to recognize the seniors, and we will schedule another meeting. Now I just need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.